Hi, I'm Jennifer, and this is Movie Talk. Now, before we get started, I'd just like to say one thing, and that is if you hear a buzzing in the background, we are having our deck power wash, so that's all that is. And if you hear a yapping, that is my dog expressing her opinion on the deck being power washed. So, just ignore them if you hear them. Okay, so as of my last two videos, I have been kind of on a little bit of a nostalgia kick, and this video will be no different because this week's movie talk video is on The Hobbit. Now, this Hobbit is different from the one that recently came out, as it is animated, and it is one whole movie, so you have all three movies in one. The other one was divided up between the three main things that happened in the movie: the journey, the battle with battle with Smaug, or the encounter with Smaug, and the battle of the five armies. This one has all of them. It's just one whole movie. Now, this movie was made in 1977 by Runkin Bass, who brought you the who have brought us such wonderful movies, movies you can watch on a regular basis, such as The Flight of Dragons and The Last Unicorn. And I have done movie talk videos on those, so feel free to check those out. As well as some wonderful holiday movies, as The Easter Bunny is Coming to Town, and Santa Claus is Coming to Town. And yes, I have movie talk videos on those. Well, on The Easter Bunny is Coming to Town. I will do one on Santa Claus is Coming to Town around Christmas time, so feel free to check those out as well. And they also have brought us such wonderful TV shows as Silverhawks and the original Thundercats, which I will do TV talk videos on once I get to them, so feel free to check those out as well. This movie was inspired by the novel The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, which was written in 1937. So this movie actually came out 40 years after the book was published. So it's kind of like a 40th anniversary tribute to the book. And it's actually a wonderful book. I have read the book, and I will do a book talk video on it when I get around to it. I have to actually find the book first, and the Lord of the Rings trilogy, as well, as we redid my room, and I packed up a lot of stuff, and I did not get all of it back in, and I just need to find the box that those books are in, so just be patient. It will be a work in progress. This movie tells the story, this story is about a hobbit by the name of Bilbo Baggins, who finds himself in the company of a group of 13 dwarfs, led by the dwarf prince Thorin, who are seeking to reclaim a treasure that was taken from them many human generations ago by a dragon by the name of Smaug. And Bilbo is enlisted by the wizard Gandalf the Grey, who doesn't play much of a role in this movie, but he will play a fairly big role in the Return of the King or the Lord of the Rings trilogies, and I will talk about those in the when I do the I will do movie talk videos on those. I have the live action version, and I am currently looking for the animated version of the Return of the King, and I will do movie talk videos on those. Just be patient. And Bilbo's role in this quest is to be a burglar, and the thing is, he has no idea what he's doing. He's never left his home in the Shire, within the realm of Middle Earth, or within the part of Middle Earth that is known as Hobbiton. He's never left there. He's very content to just basically stay in his home and whatnot. So he does make the decision to go, but it is rather reluctantly that he makes the decision to go. And he has many, many mini adventures on this great big adventure with these dwarfs, and acquires many a couple of things that we do see within the Lord of the Rings trilogy. His dagger sting is one of them, and of course his ring. is another one. And of course, obviously the ring from this movie is the ring that is centered in that one, but I will talk about that later. A lot of people have said that the pacing of this movie is a little hard to go to follow. At some scenes speed up, some slow down. I don't mind the pacing all that much. I think if you've read the book and you're expecting it to go at the same pace of the book and how it glosses over certain things, yes, it can be a little disappointing. But I think it does okay. It cuts out some things that really, aren't important. The fact that they kind of refer back to them in certain dialogues can be a little confusing. But if you've read the book, it's not all that confusing, and whatnot. And again, it's a really cute little fantasy movie. Very much so. Very much in the same category as The Last Unicorn and The Flight of Dragons. And the background is just beautiful. I love the background artwork in this movie. I love the characters in this movie too. They are just so cute, and it's like they did a really good job of. Well, obviously, we have somewhat of an idea of what dwarves look like, and Gandalf being a human wizard, it's like, okay, that's not too hard to do. But they did a fairly good job of staying true to Tolkien's view of what a hobbit is. And it's like, outside of Tolkien, you really don't hear the word hobbit all that much. It's that is exclusively within the Tolkien universe is where you hear that term. So they did a very good job of making the Hobbit and designing Bilbo, who is really the only Hobbit we see in this whole movie, to Tolkien's specifications to a degree. It's been a while since I actually read the book, because I actually read the book when the Lord of the Rings live action, or the Fellowship of the Rings live action movie came out. So, it's been a while. But I do remember a little bit. They did a very good job of animating it, for the 1970s. They did a very good job of animating it. Obviously, in the live action version of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Hobbits look a little more realistic, but it's live action. Of course, they're going to look more realistic because you can't get more realistic than live action. But I thought they did a wonderful job. I liked the songs in here and how they actually took songs from the book, because there is singing in the book, and how they took the songs from the book and actually wrote music to them, and they have them in there. I loved that. I thought that was a very unique touch. So that was very interesting. Trying to think here. This movie starred quite a few voice actors. Now, I'm not going to say who did the voices of the goblins, or, the elves, or the humans, or whatnot, because there's just a lot of the voice actors did double duty, or triple duty, or, they did a lot of additional characters. And I'm not going to say who did the voices of all the dwarfs, as there were 13 of them, and it would just be too hard to get through. But I will tell you who did the voice of Thorin, and that was Hans Corin, I believe is how you say his last name. And John Hutton, I think is how you say his last name, excuse me, did the voice of Gandalf. Richard Boone did the voice of Smaug the Dragon, and Orson Bean did the voice of Bilbo Baggins. And okay, there is also a little creature in this movie called Gollum, and did not write down who did his name, so I can't tell you. We don't see Gollum very much. I mean, we see Gollum more in the Fellowship of the Ring series, but they had to kind of put him in here because he was the one who had the ring before Bilbo. So he had to be in here. I'm going to say there were two designs in this whole movie that I really didn't like. One of them, particularly after I saw the live-action version of the Fellowship of the Lord of the Rings, particularly the Two Towers and Return of the King, and that one is Gollum. after seeing him in the live action version of the Lord of the Ring, of the Two Towers and the Return of the King, because you don't really see him much in the Fellowship of the Rings, I didn't like his design in this movie or the animated version of the Return of the King. I just thought he looked like a frog. And when you get back into the Return of the King or the Fellowship of the Ring, and the Lord of the Rings, and you actually, or the book, and you read, because it describes like where Gollum got the ring and everything, and what he was like before. He was he was actually very similar to a Hobbit before, and you don't get that feel in this movie, or in this version of the movie, or in the Rankin Bass version of The Return of the King. He looks very much like an anamorphic frog. I mean, he almost looks like, for those of you who have seen the original Thundercats, Gollum in these movies reminds me of the reptilians from the Thundercats. Not so much Slythe, but more the reptilian underlings from the Thundercats. He kind of reminds me a little bit of that. Not surprising, since Rankin Bass made both this movie and the animated version of The Return of the King and the original Thundercats, but his design reminded me very much of that. And after seeing the live action version of the Return of the King and the Two Towers, I liked that design of him better. The other design in this movie I did not like was Smaug, and his overall design was cool and everything. I mean, he was a dragon. They made him this big, massive, intimidating looking dragon, but his face reminded me too much of a cat. And I'm like, I'm sorry, dragons are not cats. So I felt he shouldn't have the face of a cat. A dragon is a giant lizard, so he should have looked like a giant winged lizard. I would have been so much more happy. Like, if they had made his face look more like Godzilla from the 70s or 60s or whatever, that short-lived TV show of Godzilla, or even more like Godzilla, I would have been more happy. And I only know this because I saw it on Netflix. I did not like his face design in that, because he looked too much like he had too much of a cat-like face. And I'm like, I don't remember him having a cat-like face design in the book. So that was, he might have, like I said, it's been a while since I read the book, so he might have, but those were like the two character designs I did not like. And I actually did like Gollum's design originally, because I thought he looked it was a very creepy looking design for him, and he was a very creepy looking creature. Gave you a very creepy feel, just because the way his mind was. He kind of gave you this very, ooh, he's creepy kind of feel. So I did originally like his design until the live action version of the Lord of the Rings trilogy came out, and then I'm like, I don't like that design for him anymore. I like the live action version design for him, and he was actually animated in that film as well. I liked that design. I was like, I don't like that design. I don't like the Rankin Bass design for him anymore. I like the Return of the King, or the Lord of the Rings live action version design for him better, because he looks more human. And that was my one thing, is like, if this creature was supposed to be human at one point, I don't get how you go from being a creature that was very similar to a hobbit to being this frog-like creature. It's like, that is just too much of a drastic change. I get this is a world of magic, but you wouldn't make that much of a change again. But, again, as a kid, you don't notice that, especially since I hadn't read the Lord of the Rings trilogy at that point when I had seen it. It wasn't until later that I actually read it. And that was one of the main reasons why my dad had recorded this movie in the first place when we saw it, because he had been reading, or had finished reading, The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and that was something he was interested in, so he had recorded it for me and my sister. And again, this is another one of those movies, like The Last Unicorn and The Flight of Dragons, that I look back at it as an adult, and I'm like, what were Mom and Dad thinking, letting me and my sister watch this movie with all this violence and thievery and whatnot, and these trolls that were talking about eating dwarves and hobbits alive, and these goblins that were just creepy and lurked in the shadows and whatnot, and rode on wolves and things, and, you know, giant dragons and whatnot. But, again, like with The Flight of Dragons and The Last Unicorn, my sister and I, at that point, were more interested in the fantasy part of it, that we really weren't picking up on the more negative stuff. And it was a movie that people could, that, you know, adults and kids could watch together. And also, at the time, it was probably the best way to do a fantasy movie, as opposed to, it is now, because they just didn't have the way to do a lot of the special effects back then that we do now. So, all in all, good movie. I do recommend watching it. It is very cute, very adorable. A 2-hour movie, so they do cut a lot out. I think if you put together the new one, all 3 of the new movies that one's about probably, those together are probably 6 hours, so it's like, those are 3 times as long as this one, but it's still a cute movie. As soon as I get those 3 Hobbit movies, I will do a individual movie talk videos on each of those. I just have to find them. Actually, went out looking this past Monday for them and couldn't find them. I may have to order them off of Amazon. But all in all, this was an adorable movie. I consider it a classic. And again, you get a good look at the artwork and design. And that is how Bilbo looked in this movie. We'll do this so you can actually see. And I apologize for the little sheen from my TV on there. And I did like that. I loved the songs in this movie. They had some really cute little, I think I may have mentioned that before, but I'm going to say it again just in case I didn't. They had a lot of cute little songs. My favorite was the opening song, The Greatest Adventure. I did like that. And that's all I have to say on this video. Now, this week's question, actually I have 2 questions for you. One ties in with this movie, and one is just a general question that you can answer. The one that ties in with this movie has to do with the song The Greatest Adventure. And that is, what has been your greatest adventure up to this point in your life? Feel free to comment on that. And my other question is, we have had the live-action version, we've had a live-action version made of the Lord of the Rings and 3 live-action version movies of The Hobbit, all of which were movies that were made in the 70s and 80s. Now, of the other 2 movies from the 70s and 80s from the 80s that were made by Rankin Bass that I have mentioned that I consider classic, which one would you like to see as a live-action movie? The Flight of Dragons or The Last Unicorn, and why? Please leave your comments in the comment section, and let me know. Feel free to like and subscribe. This helps me out a lot. I'm up to 4 subscribers now. Also, feel free to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. The information will be in this description section of this video. And thank you for watching this movie talk video. I'm Jennifer, and I will see you next time.